Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Inner Circle podcast where real estate meets real life, hosted by yours truly, your homegirl, Jillian. We're coming to you live on IntellectualRadio.com, their YouTube channel, and across my social media platforms. And don't worry, if you missed the live show today, this episode and all others will be available to stream anytime on IntellectualRadio.com. Again, their YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and all of my social media platforms. So each week we dive into real estate, whether you're buying, selling, flipping, or investing, sharing real life lessons and actionable insights. Today, we're excited to focus on the legal side of real estate for week 2. We talked about legal and attorney issues last week as well. So we're focusing on that again this week. So having worked together on countless transactions, my guest today, Jill Daniels, is not only a top-notch real estate attorney, but also someone I trust to protect my clients' interests. This episode is all about giving you the tools to understand contracts, avoid costly mistakes, and protect your investment, whether you're a buyer, seller, or investor. And as always, we want you to be a part of the conversation. So call us live at 708-223-8953 with your questions or thoughts. Don't be shy. Your question could help another listener. So grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's get started. I wish I had the applause. We got to get the applause in the studio. So after I read like the introduction. Okay, clap, clap, clap. So Jill Daniels, we have known each other. I think it's been maybe 4 or 5 years.
I was just going to say 4 or 5 years.
It feels like it's longer. But let everybody know who you are, your background. Just give our viewers and our guests just a little bit more about Jill Daniels.
Well, I am a real estate attorney and I love everything real estate. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary of my firm.
Yay.
And just, I don't know, there's nothing I don't like there's nothing I don't like about real estate, I should say. Okay. You know what I mean? There's things that, are not as exciting as other things, shall I say. But I love it. I love real estate and I can't believe it took me 40 years of my life to get here. But
so,
here I am.
I don't know that I ever asked you, did you intend to start off in real estate?
No. So we did high volume litigation.
Okay.
Took some time off with my kids, came back. I got my mediation certificate, did a lot of mediation with the courts and things like that. And my one girlfriend was like, I think you'd make a great real estate attorney. I was like, not even sure what a deed is. So I was like,
you not knowing what a deed is?
Now I know what a deed is. I mean, I got you covered.
Right.
But back in the day, I was like, I don't know that I'm equipped to do that. That's called malpractice. She's like, no, you can totally do it. So I did a lot of CLEs, had a lot of like mentors and people that helped me to get to where I am here today. And I try to give that back to others just to be a really good resource to make it the best that we can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get started. So Jill, you and I have worked together on quite a few deals over the past few years. So from your perspective, what is the biggest legal hurdle for buyers or sellers facing, that they may face during a transaction?
The legal hurdle?
Yeah, legal hurdle. We can talk about any kind of hurdle, legals and what you've seen.
I think it's expectations. I think we as the team need to set those clear expectations. Yeah. Because if we set really good expectations, like, you know what, your loan might get extended, this kind of thing, then it won't be such a hurdle because I think those hurdles come from the unknown.
And the timelines, right? Buyers, when we enter into a contract.
Right.
And we as realtors, we give people the expected timeline. So 30 days, 45 days. But we realistically, you don't know what
I think
could
we
come
need
up.
to put to that timeline flexibility.
Yes.
Because, there is an F word in real estate and it's called flexibility. So that is, I think, what we need to focus on because I think that's where the frustration comes from people.
Yeah.
Like I'm really worried that I haven't heard back from the other attorney. I'm like, we're still fine. We're within the contract times, that kind of thing. Or someone needs an extension to not really understand how that's going to happen, that you're not going to lose the house if you need one more day to get the loan approved.
So as far as expectations, and so I'd like to explain a little bit about the process. So as being a realtor, we take, and I'll use buyers. I won't go the seller side right away, but we take buyers out to see properties, right? We find the right one. We write a contract. We make an offer. Our offer gets accepted.
You make your offer on a standard contract.
So that's,
I think, important.
Oh, here you go. You're gonna start throwing in the legal terms.
Well, I think that's important to say.
No,
you're
right.
Not whipping
you're right.
Up
A standard contract. Right.
It's
right.
a standard, well vetted.
Right.
Well understood litigated contract.
Absolutely.
So that gives you protection, which I think is really key to put in there.
Which is kind of what I want to get to. But just as far as the process, write an offer, go under contract. That's when the attorney kind of comes into play. We try to introduce our attorneys to clients ahead of time so they know who we recommend or who they'll be working with, and try to explain why an attorney is important in the process. So one, I kind of want you to share with people why an attorney is important, and then talk about how your team, once we kind of get you guys involved, or I don't want to say transition that client over into you, we're kind of bringing you into the process. How does your team work with the client?
So, I have, well, let me like kind of do with who my team is. I have a full staff of 5 people. So everything is task oriented because I think that contract has so many different tasks in there, contingencies as well as tasks. So, we're really equipped once we get that. I'm always available though in advance. Sometimes people need that extra assurance that, if I give my earnest money, and then I have the home inspection and I don't like it and I want to get out, can you confirm with me that I can get my earnest money back? And I absolutely am always happy to be that resource to give them that assurance.
You guys,
for that.
and you're kind of doubling down on what we already say. It's like, but when it comes from an attorney,
Correct.
it
You might
it
say
just
the same
validates
thing,
it.
and you might get me on the phone for 30 seconds, and
Right.
they're like, "Oh, okay, Jill said that."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they have to hear from the other
Jill.
That's correct.
That's right.
In order for it to be legit. So yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And I think like there's just so many things. So once I think what's overwhelming to people, and like this is again setting expectations, it's just how much happens in the first, like you have to be on email.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? I would say
Because time is of the essence. I mean, that's
time is
part
of the essence.
yeah,
If you have to open
a
up a new
contract.
email because you're not checking email,
Mm-hmm.
like my children that are adultish in their 20s, they don't feel the value of email. I'm like, well, no, that's still how the world works.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? We still have to
Mhm.
email. So you have to be equipped to and be ready to be like, okay, they sent me an addendum to sign. Let me sign that and get that back because all of these different things keep the party moving,
Absolutely.
towards the closing date.
And it goes back to expectations on our part, because they expect a lot from us because we're working for them. So employment basically of a client, but expectations from their attorney, and then we have to tell them these are your expectations.
Right.
You have to read, you have
I
to
almost
answer
feel
your
like we need a
email.
client bill of rights. Like you do that
Yeah,
in
you
some
do.
forms
You
of,
do.
but maybe that's something fun I add. Like, here's what we expect of you.
Yeah.
Do you know what
No,
I'm saying? Like,
but I feel like as a realtor though, that is part of my biggest expectation. This is how the process is going to work. And so
you are
I
not going
need
to go
you to
buy a
be
car.
active. Well,
You are
that's
not going
a
to do that.
whole different
I know,
situation.
right? But this is what your expectations are from, and I know you've had
Yeah.
other people on,
Absolutely.
right? But these are your expectations. Respond back to your attorney. Don't ghost me.
Yeah. No, you have to be
I
a part of
mean,
you have to be a part of the transaction
you have
if
to
you
be an
want this
active,
property.
correct.
Absolutely.
You have to be an active
Yeah.
participant
And then
in the
even on
purchase.
the seller side too, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to be an active participant in the purchase or sale of your home.
Right.
Even if I'm ordering your water for your sale or your payoff, I still need you to sign that payoff form.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems
Absolutely.
crazy, but we need you engaged.
Absolutely. And it's our responsibility to tell our clients that, right? From our end, from me working with them from the beginning. And then I know you guys send a great email. You have a team that's doing, proactive calling to clients. We're constantly following up, but just to anybody out there that's going to buy or sell, don't disappear on your realtor or your attorney, please.
Right. It's not that we're taking it personal that we're ghosting. It's just you're going, or your lender. Don't of your
That's
team.
the biggest part, right?
Don't,
Of your team, of your real
right.
estate
It
team.
could be
Yeah.
even your home inspector.
Yeah.
You don't pay them. They don't release the report. We can't get the letter off.
Right.
So there's so much.
Right.
Just be ready to be engaged.
Yeah.
But we try to be like approachable.
Mhm.
I always have my cell phone. Like I said, I have more than enough people in the office, and it's interesting to see. Somebody might like talking to Patrick. Somebody might be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to call Holly for everything." So it, whatever that case may be, we want to be the right team with you,
Right.
to make it work.
So back to the standard contract, what do you feel like is probably the most misunderstood, or no, I'm gonna stay with misunderstood. What do you think is like the most misunderstood part of the real estate contract?
Well, we have a new contract coming out.
Yeah, I do.
So we're going to talk about the current one that we have, because I
Okay.
think the new contract has, beefed up my beef with the
Yes.
7.0.
Mm-hmm.
So it is when you buy a property as is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going in and you're going to pay. I'm going to put my offer in that this is going to be an as is because I want to get a great price. And then you go through it and you're like, you know what? I didn't know that the roof was leaking. I didn't know that all of this was happening. So I think the misunderstood part is, It's as is means as is.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean it's as is aside from major safety
Right.
concerns. So what I tell people is, if you ask for something in an as is contract, you run the risk that the seller can cancel on you unilaterally, just say, you have violated the contract and we are not moving forward with you. Especially in a market. I mean, this is where you attest to that.
Mm-hmm.
How competitive is your offer? Like I ask the clients that when they want 4 or 5 things in the as is,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Were you competing against 10 other offers? Well, you may not want to ask for this because you got a really good price. You really want this home. Or, the example I would use is if this home is next to your mom, and that's super important. Like, I'm saying? You have family next door. It's going to be key for babysitting doing that. Do you really care that, your furnace, do you know what I mean? That you might,
Mm-hmm.
it's past its useful life,
Right.
which isn't even appropriate to ask for in the contract.
Right.
But as is as is, you know, and that I think is misunderstood.
That is a big, big struggle for us. Even on on the attorney side, I feel like we come to you guys to once again double down on what we're saying as is, but making buyers understand what that means when you are making that offer
Correct.
and it's multiple offers on the table and that they feel like is their way, to get it. But I need you to understand exactly what this means for you and on the seller side and
Correct.
what you may hear on the other end after you have your home inspection.
Right. I mean, I have one yesterday. I was like, what is he talking? It was as is. It was a rock bottom price. I don't even know what this place looked like, but for the price given, that it was a multi-unit for like 125. Okay. I was like, this is not a palace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Right.
I'm going to expect that this is going to need some work. The attorney was like, I know it was as is, but we have some concerns. Okay. So I went to the MLS to look at the,
Mhm.
maybe
Look the listing. Yeah.
realtor.com, I should
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah. Right.
to look at the pictures. And I was like, there is no way that anyone could expect any guarantees with this house.
Right.
There are open walls. The furnace was in pieces on the floor. I'm like, what? I'm like, have you not looked at the pictures? This is what I said to the buyer's attorney.
It's expectations. I mean,
Right.
you kind of set the tone and the key for this conversation. A lot of what we experience is lack thereof or misunderstood.
Right.
Or
And I
just
think we as a team set those
right.
expectations and those things too of, hey, it's been 24 hours and we haven't heard from the other attorney about our
Mhm.
attorney review letter with your request for the home inspection items. And the world is not ending. I know we're going into a 3-day weekend,
Mhm.
right? Like this, if it was Friday, we're going into a 3-day weekend, but in the world of that just stops everything. And you may not get a response, but I need to not have the agent be like, you need to call them. You need to call them.
Right.
We
Right.
need to work together to keep the client calm and
Yeah.
informed.
Absolutely. I want to back up just a little bit because some of my viewers and listeners are first time home buyers or they've never bought and they don't understand the importance of having an attorney in a transaction here in Illinois. So can you kind of speak to that?
Right, and I'm only gonna speak to it in the Chicagoland
Yeah.
area.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're down in Springfield, it's gonna be a whole different beast down there,
Mhm.
but right here in the Chicagoland area, I think you need to have an attorney. I'm not just saying that because 'cause I'm an attorney and it's my job, but I think it offers you protection because I argue on the other side, as a seller, for example, if the buyer does not have an attorney, you accepted that contract. You know what? It's subject to attorney review.
We're going to get into what that means because
Right, but
some
it's
people don't know what that means at all.
I'm
So,
sure they don't. Right.
yeah.
But I think we guide you as the attorney. I feel like I am not that I watch football very often, but the quarterback of the transaction. That's about my football terminology.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No,
You know,
absolutely.
coming out. But we are the ones that extend the deadlines, can do an addendum to the contract, can do the modifications, and to advocate for you. And additionally, we go to the office. We go to the closing at the title company office with you
Mhm.
so that we can explain these documents. And I mean, most of the closings are smooth at the time of closing. Most of them are smooth. But then once in a while, there's an issue that comes up or something like that we need to, as an attorney, you wouldn't even know what to ask for. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, like one example would come up would be like if you're buying a condo, like storage spaces and parking spaces, are they assigned by the
Just
association?
condo docs in general.
Right, like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's my goal for this month is I'm
Right.
going to beep off my condo email.
Yeah.
Here
Yeah.
are some
Yeah.
documents that would be typical that you would see in kind of a
It
glossary
is a
of
much
them.
needed. Absolutely.
Um,
Yep.
and to, here is a much, like this is what you need to look at. Focus on, are you comfortable with the rules and
Mhm.
regulations? I mean, a thing that comes up often is it's a no smoking building, but you might want to have a cigar on your balcony.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? Or a cigarette on your balcony or something. Is that going to be allowed? Now, for me, I don't smoke, a cigar or a cigarette, so it wouldn't be a concern for me. So I wouldn't know that when we're going through it.
Mhm.
But for you, that might be a deal breaker. So that's where I think good communication,
Transparency. Yeah.
right, with your attorney to say, hey, here's some of the questions I have. Do you know what could I put a washer and dryer in? Things like that. And then we can always go back to the association for clarification. But that is an important
Mhm.
thing, the HOA. But there's so much to unpack that I don't know. I think, and also I think as a buyer, there is a lot that you have responsibility to do. Just if you have a loan, there's a lot of like, let me get this document, let me get this document. And you want someone to be there on your side. And, maybe there's a situation where you're not comfortable talking to your agent, your real estate agent.
I don't like to think that none any of my clients are
Well,
not
maybe there's an
comfortable.
attorney,
No.
right?
I
But there
got
might
you.
be an attorney-client privilege. It's
Yes.
like, so
Right.
something like
Yeah.
that might be like, I need to get out
Mhm.
because of this situation.
Yeah, and
And how
sometimes
can
we
I
don't
get you?
find out until the end. They've already talked to you, and then they're coming back to us saying,
Right. I mean, not
"Well, I
to say
talked to
that you wouldn't
Jill."
be
Yeah.
right, but I mean, but that gives you a protection too that I think could be a situation. Like I
Mhm.
had one recently where she was like, "I'm going to file for divorce. They're selling," but nobody could tell. She couldn't tell the agent because the agent really knew the husband. How do I go about doing this? And that would be like, where it is attorney-client privilege.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
that I think is important too.
So some of the other things that I think that I just remember getting questions about constantly, especially in the beginning of working with clients, is understanding the contract and the time that we kind of talked about it, deadlines or the time frames in it, attorney inspection review, the
Which I think
lending
is so quick.
deadlines, all of that. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those, like the deadlines. And we talked about this of being responsive and being timely in on our clients and responding. These deadlines are spelled out in a contract. Not
They
only are
are.
we reinforcing them, I know your team and other attorneys, there should be reminding clients of these deadlines coming up. But let's just talk about a little bit about them.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say there's like we'll call them the contract
Yeah.
contingencies.
Hmm.
So the first one is attorney review. Okay, so that is your chance to, um, you know, ask for any contract modifications. I put in a handful. I don't do too many. Something like the property must appraise, asking about insurance claims, things like that. Let's say there was the interest rate missing or something like that from the contract or the term, like filling in that paragraph, just tidying it up, initial
Hmm.
mist. So that would be, the first 5 days. So usually, I mean, realistically, buyer or seller, it's probably going out the afternoon up
Hmm.
until 6 o'clock on the fifth day,
Right.
just because you're had inspections. Maybe you have a sewer line, you have something like that, that scope that's going to take a little bit more time. So we are really pretty much, button up against that deadline, if
Right.
that makes sense. Um, and then we have the insurance contingency
Hmm.
for homeowners insurance as well as flood insurance to verify that. So that is something else I remind the clients just to check, especially with insurance rates.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They are going up
they
and
are. Yep.
like looking to deny claims.
Absolutely.
And
Especially in recent wake of things.
right, it's
Right.
not great.
Yeah. It's
I
yeah.
mean, I think my premium this year went up like 15%,
Wow.
which is a significant. So you want to make
Yeah.
sure that, you want to make sure your home's insurable, that there's not excessive claims on the home, that kind of thing that you're concerned about for your insurance rate. The other one would be the mortgage contingency.
Yep.
Okay. Securing
It's a
financing.
big one.
That is a big one. So there's two within that. One, you have to apply for your loan
Hmm.
and pay any and all fees is in the first 10 business days. So that is a contingency that we ask for an extension on that because maybe you don't want to order your appraisal till we know, what, you asked for a lot in that home inspection because that house
Absolutely.
was not, it had some hidden things.
Yeah.
And so you may want, a little bit more of an extension on that. And then getting your, what we call it, a clear to close. That's the
Hmm.
good news. That's what we want to
So
hear.
those are the three words clear that we all want to hear, right?
Right.
But yeah, no.
CTC, clear to close, baby.
Yeah.
So we want to hear that.
Hmm.
And so we might need an extension for that
Hmm.
or an extension to review your HOA docs through
Right.
paragraph 15, those kind of things. So, there are different extensions there. And so we do log that. I think when we set up a file, whether it be our internal tasks or, especially I know we're talking about a buy, you're looking at, we might have 25 tasks because it might be a 2-day reminder. Hey, to the lender, what are you needing to make sure the clear to close?
Right.
Oh, you know what? I haven't got an updated title. Oh, well, let me get on that and work with the seller's attorney. So we really try to be proactive about that.
Got it. So, what are some? I guess I've seen situations where clients
We've
were,
seen a lot of situations.
where clients were completely caught off guard by some kind of hidden clause, right, or something that I'll look, I take accountability. It might be something that I missed in an offer, or, just something that might be have snuck up in there by an attorney or by the agent on the other side in the contract. So, like, are there any sneaky clauses or things that, even an example that you've seen where something was in a contract and somebody missed it?
Well, I would say maybe the post-closing possession. So for those of you that don't know what that is really can be really a great, negotiation tool because it allows your seller to stay in the home following closing. So it's not a lease, but it's rather they put X amount of money into an escrow. So usually it's 2% of the purchase price. So if it's $100,000, they would put $2,000 into an escrow account, and then we would do a daily per diem. But sometimes that's already filled out
Mhm.
with we're doing 2% in the purchase price, and then it's a 0 per diem. So that can be shocking. And I've seen that because that's part of your offer. So
Offer,
I'm
right?
not
Yeah.
going to go back and negotiate that,
Hmm.
right? This is what your offer is. But I am trying to be better about letting you know you're not, you're paying your mortgage
Yeah.
for, let's say it's 60 days, for 2 months, and the seller's not reimbursing you. But maybe that was how you got the house.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean?
But it's
How your
worth
offer was,
asking that question,
right?
right? Yeah.
How your offer was accepted. So I think that's something that that can be a little bit like, when are we getting that money? A little bit misunderstood for that. I mean, what would you say? I mean, what have you seen that's
No,
surprising to
that
people?
is
Post closing
post
possession.
closing is a big one. I think it's something that's missed. We overlook it a lot. I
And
think
to
it's at
really
the end of that
understand it.
contract, and sometimes, yeah, and to understand it, right? Even as realtors, it took me a while to understand. Well, what does that mean? What is a lease back?
Right.
So you don't just and thankfully for people like you, attorneys or your managing broker, that can sit down with you and explain what exactly that means. What's the benefit? What are the disadvantages?
Right,
But
because
yeah,
it's not without risk because you're not living in the home.
right.
There could be extra costs, those kind
Hmm.
of things. Even if we do an agreement,
Hmm.
which I have like a good 2-page agreement,
Yes, you
single
do.
space because I'm a lawyer. But I really feel strongly that that is for protection. I mean, and I can always give a story about mine. We were rehabbing our house. This was like 9 years ago, doing post closing possession because they wanted to sell and then move. And I said, that's fine. They were having it for 3 days. Well, he did not move his car out of the garage because it had no wheels. I don't remember what kind of car it was, but
Hmm.
something from England, had no wheels, was up on blocks. He thought he had sold it. The person did not want it.
Oh,
So this car's there and there and there, but it's not like for a car. You can't call junk remedy.
right.
Hey, come tow this away because it's
It's yeah,
you
the
need a
title and
title
everything.
for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So that became very tricky where I was like, we're getting kitchen cabinets delivered. It's been like 4 weeks.
Hmm.
You were
And you're
supposed to be
trying
here
to be
3 days.
flexible and understandable, but
Right. I was like,
but
it
it's
doesn't.
not your responsibility.
No, I'm like,
Right.
we don't live here, so
Yeah.
it's not a real big deal to me.
Hmm.
A couple days goes
Right.
by, you know what I mean? But I was like, we need it for storage. Like we
Hmm.
needed that to stage stuff. So that became he ended up having to get it towed away to a junkyard that he had to wait to do it. But I was like, this is crazy town.
Yeah, but there are things like situations like that come
Right.
up, and you don't think about them until you're in them.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it could be, you have the whole, I mean, this is I just think I don't love post closing
Hmm.
possession. I mean, I think it's a necessary beast.
Yeah.
But you could have a whole room. I mean, I don't know what's underneath my sofa in the corner. Like we have a big, huge corner, sectional.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not moving that every day.
Right.
I mean, I don't
So
know.
you
There
don't
could
know
be
what's
damage to
underneath
the
it, right?
floor.
When you move
As a
it and the
seller, I
carpet,
didn't
right?
misrepresent
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But then when my buyer came, if I moved that and I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize there was damage to the floor or
Hmm.
the baseboard or whatever that might be, then that becomes an issue
Got it.
where it's much better, I think, as a buyer, to see the empty home going into it. But
Yeah.
that's where we have the protection going in.
Hmm.
But if you can get your house, I mean, I did it to get my house, so it's
Yeah.
not all
No.
bad.
Absolutely. It's a compromise in
It
essence.
is.
And you're
Remember
thinking
the effort, flexibility.
flexibility. You're right. It is that. It is being flexible, even to know in the long run it's going to give me what I want. So,
Right.
absolutely. So, can you explain like what happens when a buyer or seller wants to back out like during the attorney review period?
So if it's during the attorney review period, buyer or seller, I just send a disapproval letter, but we can't just do it for purchase price. So that would be happen more
Mhm.
so in the seller situation where maybe they got a new offer,
Right.
okay, with was 10,000 higher, that kind of thing, which I'm going to say, having seen many of those, that's not always the better offer.
Exactly.
That's, you know what I mean? The grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. I can tell you many times where people have gone with another offer and then gone back to the other offer.
Absolutely
'Cause
happens. Yep.
It does.
It
But
does.
I, you know, well, I think I like
Yeah. No.
went on a tangent, and then I was like, I got to circle back to make sure I got
So
it
what
right.
happens when, you know,
Oh, right, when
attorney
you get
review
it.
and they
I
want to
used to
back out, they want to terminate
Right.
the
So you have
contract.
tendered your contract, most likely your earnest money, you know, which is, you know, a nominal amount compared to your purchase price.
Mhm.
That does go towards your funds to bring to closing. So you, I would just send a letter disapproving it. But it is really important that both parties, you have to know, both parties have to sign off on the release of the earnest money.
Correct.
It is not just a you know, unilateral release.
Mhm.
So if you know whoever's holding it, the title company, the brokerage, the attorney, both parties have to sign off. 99% of the time they do. There are you know, there can be a circumstance here and there that they do not.
Absolutely.
But you have to, you know, like to say, there's nothing wrong with the home, or it's more like it's the buyer that canceled.
Mhm.
I mean, or I'm sorry, the seller that canceled on the buyer.
Because repairs weren't going to be made, or
No, this is in the first 5 days.
oh, in the first,
So
yes,
so
yeah.
yeah,
So
the
this is
seller's
right.
just saying,
Absolutely.
I don't like this contract anymore.
Okay.
So if I was representing the seller there, I would say something, even though I wouldn't put it in the letter,
Mhm.
I'd have a clear understanding if I got called out why we were canceling it.
Right.
The closing date no longer worked.
Mhm.
They didn't love how post-closing possession understood. They didn't understand the different types of loans,
Mhm.
because I know you've gone over that with
Yeah.
the different types of loans. Like maybe it was an FHA loan and they did not want to make repairs
Mhm.
because the property was as is, things like that. Because I would want but sometimes I've had buyers push back. I think they just did it because they got a higher price.
Mhm.
So that do know that there, you know, there is a chance that they may not sign off. They are supposed to sign off.
Right.
You know what I mean? They are, I believe, required to, but it always resolves itself. It might be 30 days.
Yeah.
A lot of times people need to sit on it.
And I would say 90% of the time they're going to sign off.
They are.
It's that 10%.
I don't want to worry anybody. I
Right.
don't even
Right.
need
No, I don't.
10%.
And right. The
I
odds
think
might
it's
be
rare.
higher. Yeah, less
mean-
than that. But yeah, no, it's rare. But there are cases out there where you get a stubborn seller or buyer. You know, either one
Or an
on
attorney
either
that's
side.
very litigious.
Absolutely, and they want to come for your jugular with everything. You know,
Right.
because
Instead of like,
yeah.
because I always tell my clients, like, you know what, if they don't want to sell to you, or you don't want to, like, they don't want to buy, you know what, there's going to be another out along the way.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So let them out and cut your losses and get this house
Now,
relisted.
right.
That's my philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the first 5 days, right? So let's say I've got a buyer that has their home inspection and there's a list of repairs, as often
It
there
often
are,
goes.
right? And you know, this buyer has asked the seller to repair X, Y, and Z. Seller comes back and says, no, we're not repairing the majority of these. We'll repair this one thing, but
right.
you
Like,
know,
agreed, disagree,
there's
disagree,
a deal
disagree.
breaker in there, right?
Right.
Buyer wants to get out of the contract. What's the process?
So after 10 business days, okay, and remember, business days are Monday through Friday with a non-holiday,
Mhm.
and you know, the hours.
There's a time. I was just going to say there's a time on that,
too.
right? Okay.
8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes.
are considered business. I believe it's 8 a.m. Now I'm like, my God, that's
No,
a trivia.
It's 8
question.
a.m. and I normally do to 5 p.m. If it's anything after 5 p.m.
6 p.m. is in the
6 p.m.
contract.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So, but I think it starts at 8
Yeah.
p.m., 8 a.m. rather. So I would say at 6:01 on business day 10, we can send a cancellation letter that says we could not come to any agreement
Mhm.
during this. So hereby I declare this contract null and void and ask for the return of earnest money.
And what happens if not all parties agree to sign
Same
that
back to
cancel?
it.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. You're
You know, I
earnest.
had to ask that because we get asked that all the time. What if the seller doesn't want to sign so I can get my earnest money back?
They may not want to sign.
They may not want to sign, but so that's kind of the misconception I wanted to throw in there because as I heard you talking, but what happens if neither party sign? What happens to that earnest money? I know the answer,
there.
but I want right.
It sits there.
It sits there.
And depending upon who's holding it.
Yeah.
Like if I'm as the attorney holding it, which I'm trying to have the title company hold it more
Mhm.
often. But if I am I have 5 years it sits in my account before I can turn
Right.
it over.
Absolutely.
You know,
But buyers or either I feel like both sides, neither is they're uninformed as to what happens with that earnest money. If the buyer defaults, the seller automatically thinks they're walking away with that money and I can go
absolutely.
do whatever I want to do with it.
Like
And I'm like, it does not work like that.
there is a form. I use that
Yes.
form. for the earnest money, for the return of earnest money. I also use that form for like circling back to the post-closing possession. I don't release any, whether it be a tax proration, whatever that is, I don't release any funds from my trust account without both parties signing off. You know what I mean? Like, and it's, if we have to wait for it, we have to wait for it, because I don't want to release it. And then that they say, you gave me 400, it should have been 1,400.
Right.
I have everybody release it. So it is, I think that's where, especially when the transaction's over with, that it's really key to have, for you as an agent, which I know you do, have great communication with the other side to say, hey, I know your attorney stopped responding because we have no active transaction anymore, but we need to work together to get this signed.
Yeah. So you mentioned title. I wanted to talk a little bit about that process. Title, what does that mean for people in the closing process, or when a title company runs title to guarantee, there's no liens and stuff like that? I want to get into that because that's been a deal killer, especially for investors or just buyers in general. When you've got liens, mechanics liens, or just general liens that come up, even tax liens.
Well, and it can come up on a buyer side. So title, first of all, is the escrow agent. So you close with the title company as the escrow agent, meaning they take all the money in and disperse once all the parties have approved, including buyer, seller, and lender, if there is a lender. And title insurance is routinely in the contract, unless it's been modified with the rider or something like that, is a seller's cost to provide an owner's policy. So that means that you own, as the buyer, the property free and clear during your entire ownership, free and clear of anything that happened prior to you purchasing.
Anything or anyone, because, it may be a long lost family member that comes out of the works and says, hey, I've got ownership in this property.
Like a probate, like let's say you bought it from someone that was deceased. So it would, that's why as the listing, as the seller's attorney, you go through an affidavit process, a court process if someone's deceased. So let's say, Susie comes to the buy, and said, this is my property because there was a deed back in 2010 before the person you even bought it from owned it. You are insured for that, to be made whole, to litigate it, that kind of thing. So that is title insurance there. It is not it's not something that would happen after the fact. Okay. It also protects you against judgments, because I think this is a little known fact where you have a personal judgment against you, as the seller, they can file against the property for there, but also they can pull like if you owe the federal government and you have a lien there, they're not going to let you take all of your profits from your property. Think about that, and not pay the government back. They've set up checks and balances there that they're going to be paid first.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can be a surprise
tax
for a
lien
seller.
goes first, right?
Yeah.
That's a tax lien is the first on the.
Well, that would be a real estate tax.
A real estate tax, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm talking like a federal tax lien, state lien, something like that.
I meant property taxes. Normally, that's first lien, right?
And they're going to be gone.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah.
So that's those are things like, just in general, things that can come up on a title as a seller that you have assurance as a buyer that it's going to be cleared. Would be mechanics liens on the property, mortgages, ownership rights, any liens, those kind of things like that. And then as a buyer, if you have a judgment, tell your lender.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's where maybe you don't want your agent to know or your attorney to know, but it's going to come out. We're all going to know.
And it's going to stop.
And we don't care.
It's going to stop the deal.
Right. I would rather know in the beginning, how can we get
Absolutely.
around it? Because let's say you had paid it off, but they didn't file the release to it. Wonky things happen. Do you know what I'm saying? I had a tax lien filed on my house because I was paying my taxes, but I was paying them under my social and not my husband's social security number.
Okay.
And apparently it goes by the man. So even though he wasn't writing it, Peter.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, no, I paid like 30,000 of this. It's been like a year. Like I have paid aggressively.
But those things happen.
Yeah,
because you don't know.
I had no
you should
idea.
be paying it like that.
So my accountant had to get involved and do this.
Yeah,
we had to get this all rectified. But it didn't happen overnight. Like if that had happened and I was going to buy a home and I didn't even know that I had this lien and it came up, it was not it was a several week resolution. So that's where I'm going to say, come clean. And I always tell people, it happened to me. It could be erroneous. I mean, mine was erroneous.
Yeah.
I was like, it was filed on my property and then a release was filed. So
and we mentioned deeds and we were talking about liens, and it just automatically made me think of my investor clients. And there's a lot of deals out here that it's quick claim, right?
So my resolution, I have a lot of things I'm aiming for in 2025, right?
Okay.
But I will tell you what we've changed to our workflow is when we prepare a quick claim deed, there is a release that will be done.
Okay.
because you need to
But back
understand.
up. Let's explain what it is.
Okay,
I want to know your opinion of what you
it's
think
not
about
bad,
it.
right?
Okay.
So here's the thing. So a,
What it is? What is a
a
quick
quick
claim?
claim deed means you're gonna, like, let's say you're gonna send your house to me,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you just transfer it over.
Right.
Okay, I'm taking it subject to. Well, I didn't know you didn't had a mortgage.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know that you had a lien filed against
Mm-hmm.
your property, and I will have one recently where maybe you're not even the owner.
Oh, that happens a lot
Right.
in
Do you know what
the
I'm saying?
investment
Like,
world. It happens a lot here. I don't know about
right,
other
because
states,
I
but I
could
see it a
quit
lot.
claim any
Yeah.
property.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Any
mean? I
property.
love that house over there. I'm gonna quit claim
Yep.
that to my husband.
Right.
But okay, I can
And you have
file.
no ownership in
I
it.
have no ownership.
Right.
I can file that deed with the county. They don't care because they're not doing a title search going
Mm-hmm.
back with, ownership. And then you're thinking, I got a deed that says this house is mine, but I was never on the deed. Jill was never owned this house. You know what I mean? Rhonda owned the house.
Mm-hmm.
Where did I get Rhonda? That was a dark horse name.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Right. No,
Right.
yeah. Right.
So you know what I mean? So like that is, I mean, like you've got, this was owned by, somebody entirely different. Well, they're still owning that property, but I
Mm-hmm.
think I own this property, and I paid the back taxes because I wanted to get this all current because I relied upon you, but that was an uninsured deed. So you want an insured deed.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I had one like closed yesterday where it was a family, dad to son. And she was like, well, we could do a quick claim deed. And I said, you know what? It's going to be cleaner for your son and best that he just owns it outright.
Right.
You know what I mean? He doesn't have to clear. It was held in a trust. He doesn't have to go back. Because if you have some of these investors, I mean, they could be 3, 4 quick claim deeds down,
Yep.
but then we have a quick claim deed back where the, husband was on it, married. Okay. It didn't say not a homestead property, meaning his wife or spouse did not have a right to the property. And now we need to make sure for that wife that he was married to, that she is not going to claim a stake in that property.
The newer one, the second wife, or the
Any of the
original,
wives.
any of the
I don't know.
wives,
The
right?
past ones, the new ones. I don't know.
But
They're
that's
so-
common, though.
We could have a podcast on this.
on that, right? That is so common. You see that as you're looking at the title. You see that.
Mhm.
Stuff.
I mean,
But
we've had some instances where I'm like,
absolutely.
I mean, more than I can even, and
I've had
imagine.
some where people passed away, but it was the person that you got the deed from. We had a deal that was like that a few years ago.
I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
very
So stressful, right? It can be. It's stressful. So that's why these things are important. And you guys start pulling title. You have the title company pull it
I
fairly
can still
early,
pull
right?
it, right? I do. As a seller.
Yeah, as a
I have
seller,
it.
right.
I do it like, hopefully I have it back by attorney review.
Yeah.
But we pull it the same day we get the contract in. But I will tell you, there's stuff that comes up, and I'm like, who is Susie?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't know.
I don't know who
Susie.
Susie is. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, no, there was like a deed, and now we got to go back. Or I have had two in the past couple months where the seller that has signed the listing agreement, has signed the contract, does not own this property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, my mom said I owned it. But no, you don't own it. Maybe it was in her will. She's now gone. You have been living here for a couple years. Do you know what I'm saying? She hasn't even quit claimed it to you just because you don't know it. You just need to always check that.
Right.
So, but just be thoughtful of ever getting a quit claim deed. You're an investor out there, anything like that, getting a quit claim deed, investing money, thinking you're going to sell it. There could be issues. That's where you need to
talk to your attorney.
That's right.
Yes.
Jill
Yep.
Daniels here.
Absolutely.
I can help you.
Talk to your attorney. Well, you mentioned some other keywords and things that we get asked all the time: trust and wills, and how do those work in transactions, purchasing real estate or selling real
in
estate?
POAs.
Yes.
I think
Yep.
I'm going to say like,
Power of attorneys.
Power of attorneys,
Yep.
right. So a will is not going to, because the ownership would still be, the will would be for non-titled property. Like when I die, I'm giving you this ring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Or I'm getting, something like that doesn't have a title to it. But like a home, the best way to hold it is with a trust. Okay. So that would mean that you have the trust is the owner. So let's say, your mom puts the property in a trust. Okay. She loses capacity. The doctor signs a note, which is very common in a nursing home. They have a standard form. I just got one in yesterday. I mean, it was literally a fill in the blank form. You know what? This is my patient. They do not have capacity, you know what I mean, on this date. Do you know what I'm saying? Here's their diagnosis. Well, that would be fine then to say she was the trustee. Now we're going to go to the successor trustee. So that would be where that gives decisions, and lays that out so you could in the event that someone was incapacitated or didn't have the ability to make those decisions to do that. So the trust is the owner there. So it's and like you can put your investment accounts in it. You can put your bank accounts in it, those kind of things. It's a different classification of money. And then let's say I owned my home, didn't have it in a trust, and I died. How are my kids going to sell my home? I don't know. I don't even have my Peter in this. So how are my kids going to sell my home? Well, they're not equipped to do anything right now because they would have to get legal advice. They couldn't be doing this without it. I would just say, go to an attorney, let them kind of look it out. They could go to probate and get a letters of office, the court to say, here's the executor of the estate, who's going to do it, or which we see a lot in real estate because it might just be one thing because you're holding a lot of your accounts jointly, but maybe your house you're not. We do that with an affidavit of heirship, and that as an attorney, we can prepare that to show that all the heirs have signed off on this, those kind of things to make sure that we're done there. So there's an additional title charge to that, but within the first 2 years, but it's a really good way to do it without having to go to court. So that's where we as the attorneys have the resources. The average person would not know even where to begin.
And your office does wills and trusts, correct?
We do.
Yep.
And here's the most important thing I am going to say. If you don't have a will and a trust, because that is overwhelming, I can appreciate that. This time a year ago, we were redoing ours, and every Saturday, my husband and I are both lawyers. We're like, we should work on that. And we're like, you know what? Let's go out to lunch.
You can find any other excuse.
Right. We did not.
Me.
And I was like, it's a terribly cold day. We are not doing anything but doing this today and getting this done.
Right.
But if you don't have that, there's also power of attorney. That's for healthcare. And then there's one for financial. So it's a statutory form. You email me, you can get my contact information. I'll send you the statutory form. Have a power of attorney done. Everybody should have one. It's got to be witnessed and notarized. But that could give you in a situation where we're saying, husband and wife on the home, husband, has dementia, is in a nursing home, does not have legal capacity to sign. If there isn't POA and a letter from the doctor, the, agent, let's presume it's the wife, could sign on behalf of the husband. But if there is no POA, which a lot of people don't have that until it's too late, like maybe I need to get one, then we need to look at guardianship. And guardianship would be one of the last resorts that you would want to do because although it would allow you to sell a home because you might not be able to wait till they pass, you might need the money, something like that. So we would need to go to the court. The court would have somebody, a guardian ad litem, look at it, say, here's who we're going to appoint as the, guardian for the guardianship. And it's then a yearly reconciliation with the court, of the funds being sent from there. And so you lose that control over it. But there's always a way. Just reach out to the attorney. I have a thing in I'm going to tell you with my kids, we have it all in the safety deposit box. I'm like, just call a lawyer. There's enough money. Let somebody else take care of this for you.
But they know where it is. They know.
Right,
they absolutely. They know where it is. You guys have kind of talked about it, but
right.
you still give